People who were born in the 1970s and the years after that. The ones who grew up without the internet, without smartphones, without a world constantly watching them. Were these people really? The ones who don't talk too much, but somehow understand everything. The ones who learned life before it was explained online. They are not loud like today's generation, and not as traditional as the ones before them. They stand somewhere in between. This is Generation X, a generation that grew up in silence, in uncertainty, in a world that was changing faster than they could understand. They didn't have guides. They didn't have answers. So they became their own support system. But behind that calm nature is a mindset shaped by pressure, change, and struggles no one talks about. So what made them this way? Why do they think differently, feel differently, and live differently? In this video, we'll break down the hidden psychology of Generation X. And once you understand them, you'll never see them the same way again. For Generation X, life didn't start with dreams. It started with responsibility. At an age when most people are still trying to understand themselves, they were already learning how to handle pressure. Pressure to grow up faster. Pressure to be strong. Pressure to not complain. Because in many cases, they didn't have a choice. Some of them watched their parents struggle, day and night, just to keep life stable. And some lost that support too early. A father who was once there, suddenly gone. A mother who held everything together, no longer around. And in that moment, something changed inside them. They didn't just feel sadness, they felt responsibility, the silent shift from being taken care of to becoming the one who takes care. No time to fully process emotions, no space to break down, because life kept moving and expectations kept growing. So they learned to hide their pain, to stay strong, even when everything inside them felt heavy. They became independent, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And even today, that early pressure still lives inside them, in the way they think, in the way they handle problems, in the way they carry responsibilities, without asking for help. Because for Generation X, childhood didn't last very long. It turned into adulthood much earlier than it should have. There comes a point in life when everything starts to depend on you, not slowly, but all at once. Bills to pay, family to support, expectations to meet, and somehow, you're supposed to handle it all. For many in Generation X, this wasn't a phase. It became their reality, a constant pressure to keep things stable, even when everything inside felt uncertain. There were days when responsibilities were heavy, but money was not enough, when needs were real, but resources were limited, when the question wasn't, what do I want? But what can I afford to sacrifice? Because sometimes, life puts you in situations where no option feels right. You either delay your own needs or disappoint the people who depend on you. And most of the time, they chose themselves last. They adjusted, they compromised, they stayed silent. Not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Because for them, family was never optional. It was everything. And even when things got tough, they didn't stop. They kept going to work, kept showing up, kept carrying the weight, without letting it show. But behind that strength, there were sleepless nights, moments of stress, of overthinking, of silently worrying about tomorrow. How will I manage? Will this be enough? What if something goes wrong? Questions that stayed in their mind, but never reached their lips, because they believed that being strong means handling it alone. And maybe that's why, even today, they don't talk much about what they've been through. But if you look closely, you'll see it in their decisions, in their sacrifices, and in the quiet way they hold everything together. For Generation X, life slowly turned into a routine. Not the kind of routine that feels organized or peaceful, but the kind that feels heavy. Wake up, go to work, handle responsibilities, come back home tired, and then repeat, day after day, week after week, year after year. At some point, they stopped feeling like living and started feeling like surviving. Because for them, life was never about chasing passion. It was about stability, about making sure everything stays in place. Bills are paid, family is secure, responsibilities are fulfilled, even if it means ignoring themselves, ignoring what they feel, ignoring what they want, ignoring the life they once imagined. And the hardest part? They don't even complain. They carry it silently, because that's what they were taught, to keep going, no matter how heavy it gets, to not stop, even when they feel exhausted inside. And somewhere in this routine, they lost something, not success, not responsibility, but themselves, the version of them that once had time to dream, to feel light, to just exist without pressure. Now everything feels scheduled, everything feels expected, even happiness feels like something they have to make time for. And sometimes, in the middle of a normal day, a quiet thought appears. Is this it? Is this what life was supposed to be? But they don't say it out loud. They just take a deep breath and continue. Because for Generation X, stopping is not an option, even if they feel the weight of it every single day. There are moments in life that change everything, not loudly, but permanently. For many in Generation X, loss was not something distant. It was real. It was close. And it came earlier than expected. A parent who once guided them, slowly fading away. A loved one, suddenly gone, without warning. And in that moment, something breaks inside. But life doesn't stop, because life never pauses for grief. There are responsibilities waiting, work that still needs to be done, people who still depend on them. So they carry their pain, quietly. They attend the funeral, they come back home, and the world expects them to continue as normal. But nothing feels normal anymore. The silence in the house feels louder, the empty space feels heavier, and memories start to appear. In the smallest moments, a voice they can no longer hear, a routine that no longer exists, a presence that is suddenly missing. But they don't express it much, not because they don't feel it, but because they were never taught how to show it. So the grief stays inside, sometimes in sleep, sometimes in thoughts, sometimes in random moments, when everything becomes too quiet, and they just sit with it. No explanations, no closure that feels complete, just acceptance over time. Because for them, moving on doesn't mean forgetting, it means learning how to live with the absence. And even years later, that loss doesn't fully disappear. It becomes a part of them, not visible, but always present, quietly shaping how they see life and how they hold on to the people they still have. Before the world became loud, their life was quiet, not empty, just simple. Evenings weren't spent scrolling, they were spent sitting together. A TV playing in the background, not for distraction, but for comfort. One channel, one program, and everyone watching the same thing at the same time. No skipping, no rewinding, just patience and presence. And outside, the streets felt different. Kids playing until it got dark, neighbors talking without checking time, life happening without needing to be recorded. There was no pressure to capture the moment, because the moment itself was enough. And then there was solitude, not the lonely kind, but the peaceful kind, sitting alone, thinking, observing, without feeling the need to fill every second with noise. They became comfortable with their own company, and that's something most people today struggle with, because now silence feels uncomfortable. But for them, silence was normal. It was where they processed life, where they understood things, where they found calm. And maybe that's why, even today, they don't need constant stimulation. They don't need to be everywhere or share everything, because they come from a time where life wasn't about showing, it was about living. And those quiet habits, those simple routines, they didn't just pass time, they shaped who they became. Calm, observant, and deeply connected to moments most people now overlook. Sometimes, the hardest loneliness is not when you're alone. It's when you're with someone, but still feel unheard. For many in Generation X, relationships were never about expression. They were about responsibility, about staying. Even when things felt distant, they showed love differently, not through words, not through constant reassurance, but through actions, providing, protecting, staying. And somewhere along the way, their emotions stayed unspoken, because they were never taught how to express them. So even in close relationships, something feels missing. Conversations stay on the surface, feelings stay inside, and silence becomes normal. You sit together, but your thoughts are elsewhere. You share a life, but not always your inner world. And slowly, distance grows, not physically, but emotionally. And the hardest part? No one talks about it, because from the outside, everything looks fine. The relationship exists, responsibilities are fulfilled, life is moving forward, but inside, there's a quiet gap, a space where understanding should be, a space where connection should be. And sometimes, they feel it the most, in the smallest moments, when they want to say something, but don't know how, when they expect to be understood, but remain silent, when they feel something deeply, but keep it to themselves. And over time, they get used to it, used to being present, but not fully seen, used to being strong, but not fully understood, because for them, love was never about saying everything. It was about holding everything together, even if it meant holding it all inside. It doesn't happen all at once. Burnout, for them, is silent. No big breakdown, no dramatic moment, just a slow, steady exhaustion that builds over time. Waking up tired, even after a full night's sleep, going to work, but feeling mentally drained before the day even begins. For Generation X, life was never just about one responsibility, it was everything at the same time. Work pressure, family responsibilities, financial stress, emotional weight, and somewhere in between, they forgot to pause, because stopping was never an option. They kept pushing, kept showing up, kept meeting expectations, even when their energy was already gone. And the hardest part? No one really notices, because from the outside, they still look fine. They still go to work, still handle things, still stay strong. But inside, they feel tired in a way that rest can't fix, not just physically, but emotionally, a kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying too much for too long. And yet, they don't talk about it because they've been taught to keep going, no matter what. So instead of asking for help, they adjust. They reduce their expectations. They silence their feelings. They keep moving, even when they feel empty. And over time, this becomes their normal, living life on low energy, smiling when needed, responding when required, but rarely feeling fully present. Because for them, burnout isn't something they announce, it's something they live with quietly. If you look closely, you start to notice a pattern. There's something different about the way Generation X thinks. They don't react quickly. They observe first. They don't trust easily. They take time. And they don't speak about everything because they've learned not everything deserves a reaction. Inside their mind, things are always processing. They analyze people, situations, and even silence, because silence for them is not empty, it says a lot. They've lived through change, uncertainty, and instability. So now, they don't rush into emotions. They hold them, they filter them, they understand them before expressing anything. And that's why they often seem calm on the outside, but inside, their mind is constantly working, thinking about outcomes, thinking about risks, thinking about consequences, before making decisions. They don't chase instant comfort. They look for long-term stability. They don't get impressed easily because they've seen enough to know what is real and what is temporary. And because of this mindset, they become strong in silence, not loud strength, but stable strength, the kind that doesn't break easily under pressure. But this way of thinking also makes them overthink sometimes, replaying conversations, questioning decisions, reading between lines, even when nothing is said. They keep most of it inside, because for them, clarity comes from thinking, not from speaking. And that's the Gen X mindset. Quiet, careful, deeply aware, a mind shaped by experience and strengthened by everything they had to figure out alone. There's a side of Generation X that most people never truly understand, because their struggles were never documented, never shared, never posted. They lived through times where life was harder to explain and even harder to escape. No instant answers, no online support, no quick solutions, just real problems in real time. They grew up in environments where asking for help was not always an option, so they learned to figure things out on their own. They made mistakes without guidance. They faced consequences without preparation, and they adjusted quietly. There were financial struggles, that never got discussed at the table. There were emotional battles that stayed inside the mind for years, and there were moments when they felt completely alone, even while surrounded by people. But life kept moving, so they moved with it, smiling when needed, working when required, hiding what hurt, just to keep things stable. And that's why today, they carry a kind of strength that doesn't look dramatic, but is deeply earned. Because their past wasn't easy, it wasn't soft, it wasn't forgiving, it was real. And it shaped them into people who don't complain easily, don't break easily, and don't show everything they feel. But if you look closely, you'll see it in their silence, in their patience, in the way they endure what others might not even notice, because their story was never about comfort. It was about survival through struggles that made them who they are today. And in the end, when you look at Generation X, you realize something simple. They were not the loudest generation, and they were never trying to be the most seen, but they are the ones who carried life when it got heavy. They endured pressure, struggles, responsibilities, and silence without asking the world to notice. They built stability out of uncertainty, strength out of responsibility, and patience out of pain. They learned how to survive when nothing felt certain, and how to keep going when no one was watching. And maybe that's why they seem so calm today, because they've already survived more than most people will ever know. A generation that didn't just live life, they held it together for their families, for their future, and sometimes even for themselves, quietly, strongly, and completely.